He offers me the job on the spot, and then he tells me that it's going to be a stipend. I'll even tell you how much the stipend was going to be, because honestly, that amount of money was not impressive then, and it's not even impressive now. It was going to be 600 Rand a week to cover transport, and at the time, I was going to be living in the south, in Ridgeway. So, the company, the offices are in his house. Red flag number 2. The offices are in his house, so he has like a room in his house that has been set up as an office, and that's where the office was going to be. And then 600 Rand a week, and I'm doing stuff for him, assisting him, being in meetings, taking minutes, status document updates, coordinating artists, video shoots, interviews for radio, interviews for TV, meetings, sponsorship, blah 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 blah. Basically, that's what I'm doing. It was a bit slow to begin with. It was my first job. Yeah. So the offices were in his house, and then things escalated fast. I was happy there. The artist welcomed me. I was being a bit silent in the beginning, I won't lie. I was just trying to get my bearings, you know. So in meetings, I was a bit silent, but being observant and stuff, you know. And then I would do stuff like I would update status documents, I would send emails, I was liaising with artists, I was updating them on our weekly meetings. This is where the meeting is going to be, this is the time, these are the deliverables we need from you, blah 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 blah. And at some point I met the artist that I had actually inquired about in the beginning, and he was a lovely guy, an absolute gentleman, welcomed me with open arms, very polite, not arrogant at all for the things this man has achieved. And he has even toured like worldwide. Like, he's such a respected rapper in South Africa. Won't mention his name, but yeah. Anyway, like, he was such a lovely guy, and so was the business manager person. Like, they were both good people. I felt like I was in a good space. But as time progressed, I just felt that there were issues that I started experiencing, and I was uncomfortable. I started to become uncomfortable in the space. So one of the issues that I started experiencing is that number one, I felt confined to the space of that room because it was in his house. So guys, I would even second guess going to the toilet, because to go to the toilet I would have to walk out of that room, walk through the open plan space, which was the living room and the kitchen. I would have to walk through there to the downstairs bathroom. Then upstairs were some bedrooms and another bathroom, but obviously I was confined to the downstairs area. So I would feel confined to that office because he had a live-in girlfriend. I think for the most part, that's why I would feel confined to that space. So he had a live-in girlfriend, and the girlfriend was also working from home, and well, they were comfortable with each other, so they'd be in the next room kikiing. You know how couples are when they're in love. They'd be in the next room, in the living room, or working at the dining room table kikiing, you know. And I would just feel uncomfortable to walk out and interrupt whatever moment they were having. And even when I had to pee, sometimes I would hold it in, you know. Maybe it was the insecurity of a first job out of varsity and just being young, and also just wanting to not feel like a nuisance. So that was like the first hurdle I experienced, number one. Number two, load shedding was happening at the time. So sometimes there'd be load shedding, and the girlfriend lived in a different area. So when we'd have load shedding in his area in Melville, he'd say, let's go work from the girlfriend's apartment, which was a lovely apartment. Like, this girl really came from money, because that apartment, I think, was bought for her from her parents, and it was gorgeous. But I'd feel uncomfortable because already we're coming from a space where I haven't established myself. Then you're taking me to another space where I also haven't established myself. But anyway, I'd work there. Then sometimes if the girlfriend was like in Cape Town or something, I know guys, like honestly, I was at this place for 6 weeks, but a lot happened. Then sometimes when the load shedding was happening, we'd go to like a coffee place, like in Braamfontein or Rosebank, and we'd work from there, which I felt more comfortable doing that than actually going to the girlfriend's house. So that was one of the things that would make me feel out of place sometimes. Sure. Then, secondly, there was a weekly event called, I nearly said the name of the event, which would have given it away. There was a weekly music record label event that happened in Braamfontein. So at this event, I would do the box office. So I would be manning the box office, the sales of tickets as people walked in. I would take their money, give them access stamps, and etc. etc. So I was doing that, right? And at this event, we would close at like 2 a.m. It would happen on like, I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday, one of those days. And then we would close at 2 a.m. in the morning. And then at first he said to me, Sneh, we're knocking off at 2 a.m. He would get me a meter taxi to my house. This was before Uber, that's how old I am. He would get me a meter taxi home. Then I would get home at like 3 a.m. And then he said, because of this, you can come to work tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. And I felt that was fair because I'd start the day at 9. I would get home at 3 a.m. sleep. It was still only about 5 hours of sleep. Then after 3 weeks, he changes his tune and he's like, no, this is the music industry and we've got a lot going on. I don't think that it's okay that after the event, the morning after, you only get to work at 11 a.m. You have to be here at 9. And I was like, damn, that cuts my time down to only like 2 to 3 hours of sleep. Is this man crazy? But I was like, okay, I guess I am paying my dues. I'm earning my stripes. Begrudgingly, I said, okay. Didn't want to speak up too much, but okay, sharp. This was like at around week 3. At around week 3, my weekly stipend is 600 Rand. He's supposed to be paying it into my account every Friday. So this one Friday, usually I would say my goodbyes and on my way home, the money would like click into my account. So this Friday, I'm on my way home, the money doesn't click. Okay, sharp. I continue with the rest of my weekend, no money into my account. Come Monday, I go to work, I feel like it's just an honest mistake, and then I'm like, yo, I don't say yo, I say it in a professional manner. I'm like, so and so, I don't know, I think you forgot to pay in my stipend on Friday, but I didn't receive it. And then he's just like, oh, my apologies, I forgot, and he does the payment immediately. Okay, we're cool. Second Friday, the same thing happens. He doesn't pay the 600 Rand, and I'm home the whole weekend. Now I'm complaining to my boyfriend at the time, I'm complaining to my friends, blah, blah. Then, come Monday, I go to work, and I'm like, the payment didn't clock in, what's going on? And he's like, this time he doesn't immediately acknowledge his mistake. This time he's like, what? I'm like, no, it didn't clock in. And he's like, okay, let me check the transactions on the account because I think I did it. He checks like an hour later. I'm like, okay, then I go to start working. Then maybe an hour later, maybe 2 hours even, he comes back to me and he's like, oh, sorry, you were right, I didn't make the payment. Then he makes it reflects. The 3rd and 6th week that I'm there, again on a Friday, I say my goodbyes, I leave. I get home, money hasn't clocked in yet. And I'm like, I can deal with the uncomfortability. I can deal with you saying that I must only get 2 hours of sleep one time a week and come here early and finish off the work week sharp. I'm struggling but I'll do it. But when you mess with the money, you're not paying my rent. Like, this 600 rand is not paying any bills of mine. It's not paying my rent. It's not paying for my hair, my nails, my airtime, nothing. This 600 rand was strictly covering transport and maybe 3 lunches a week. Not my groceries, maybe 3 lunches a week. And I'm like, you're tripping for real. And then I call my mother, because now I'm escalating the issue to upper management. I'm like, Ma, this is what's going on. And I explained to her. And then she's like, yo, I don't know, because I'm not there and I'm not in your shoes. And I know that you're frustrated. Whatever you decide, I support you. And my mom's conclusion was also, this job is not paying any of your bills. And at the moment, njengoba ekhokhela istipend se-transport kuphela, the chances are that when the 6-month internship ends, he's probably gonna raise your money just a little bit, but it still won't cover rent. And this is a Friday, and he hasn't paid my money for the 3rd time. So I don't say anything because I'm like, you're the boss, you should be on top of this. And I think maybe after the 2nd time he had forgotten to pay me, if he had said, Sneh, can you remind me every Friday, and then I'll just do it as you remind me and we'll be fine. I think the fact that the 2nd time it happened, he was low-key defensive and he wanted to check the receipts because he thought I was lying on him, frustrated me even more. So the 3rd time it happened, I decided to keep quiet, and I said to myself and people around me that were aware of the situation that was going on, I said to myself, if come Monday this money isn't in my account, I'm going to send him a message telling him I'm not pitching for work and this is the reason, and I'll see him tomorrow if the money is in by tomorrow. So come Monday morning, no money in my account. So what do? I send him a message. Hi, so-and-so. It is the 3rd time where I haven't received my weekly stipend. And as you know, this is my transport money, so I will not be able to make my way to work today. And because I knew his answer would make me want to answer, and I would be questioning my decision depending on what he answered me, I decided to switch my phone off. So I sent that message, and then I switched my phone off and I decided to go ghost. And I wanted him to struggle that day without having me and the documents that I had updated for the start of the week. So I just switched everything off. I went offline. Me and my boyfriend at the time went to go get alcohol, and we sat on the stoop and we drank. We did. Oh my gosh. I just spilled alcohol on myself. Please ignore that. We sat on the stoop and we drank. I was like, this man doesn't even know me. I don't need this job. My daddy got 2 jobs. No, my daddy doesn't have 2 jobs. But I was like, I don't need this job. You pay me 600 rand. Like, actually, relax. Anyway, then somewhere around 6 p.m. that day, I switched on my phone, and then the money was in my account, and then there were messages from earlier. Messages from him saying, can I just come to work? We'll sort it out when I get there. And there was another message saying that I must go to Southgate and withdraw this amount of money. Then he'll give me the rest when I get to work. And I was like, what? I read all those messages and I had answered none of them. But the money was in my account. So I had enough money to actually go to work the next day, which was a Tuesday. Anyway, I go to work on the Tuesday and I'm upset. But I'm like, okay, sharp. My boyfriend walks me to the door. He drama. He walks me to the door, hugs me, and then he comes out. My boss comes out to open the gate for me, and they greet each other. They had met before. They greet each other, sharp. I go inside and we sit down, and he's like, he finds what I did unprofessional. Hey, did was unprofessional, but you paying me late 3 weeks in a row is professional, is excusable. Didn't understand that part. And in not so many words, I told him, I was like, I don't understand how I'm being called unprofessional, but you have not withheld your end of the bargain. And he was like, no, business is not about that. You must look at the long run. You must look at the name that you're creating for yourself. And it was my breaking point. I don't know. I think Usme of today would have handled that better. I don't think I would have cried, but I was young. I was right out of varsity, and I had this idealistic vision of how this job would pan out. And every week, something was happening which wasn't the way I imagined. And I've got thick skin now. So I think with the thick skin I have now, I would have persevered. But at that time, I did not have the perseverance in me. And I broke down sobbing when he said that. I cried, and I stood up and I went to the bathroom and I cried. And I think he was just in the living room overwhelmed, because remember, this guy, I was the first assistant. I think I was the first assistant he had within that job. Within the company that him and his business partner had created. He had worked for other people before, and I'm sure he had people that were lower in rank than him, but this is the first time that he was solely responsible for training someone to be the assistant that he needed. So I think also partly he didn't know what he was doing. So I went to the bathroom and I was crying. And then at some point, I washed my face with cold water. I gathered myself. I walked out. Yo, Mang Puma. He was like, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know how to make this okay, but I can see that you're not okay and you're overwhelmed. So I think you should take the rest of the day off. And I was like, I think you're right. And then he was like, I also think you should take the rest of the day off and decide whether you're ready for this and whether you want to continue with this. And I was like, I think you're right. So I take my stuff and I go home and I call my mom, and we basically conclude that this is not it. And then I call one friend of mine, I think Utando, and Utando is like, yeah, it sounds like you're really overwhelmed and it's sad because we thought this job would be a gate opener for you. And I'm like, yeah, but no, it's not panning out like that. I'm really struggling emotionally. I'm not okay. And eventually my boyfriend comes home and I talk to him about it as well. And he's also like, yo, babe, whatever you decide, I support you because I can tell you're not okay. And with that support from those key important people in my life, I then ended up making the decision to not continue with that internship. It was like almost 7 weeks in. So the next morning I message my boss and I tell him that I've thought about it, I've talked to some trusted people about it, and I don't think I'm okay to continue. Until this day, I will say, guys, I question what had happened if I had tapped into that thick skin part of me, because I feel like the connections that I might have made would have been fantastic. Like, guys, the media companies, the radio interviews, the sponsors that we were meeting with are really, really big players in the South African space in terms of brands, not just the music industry, in terms of brands. So I question where I might be, but I also know that everything happens for a reason, and that's a lesson that I learned in tapping into my intuition and being kind and gentle to myself, because I think continuing with that job would have been low-key traumatic. And I thank God that I had the financial support from my parents, the emotional support from my friends, my family, my parents, as well as my boyfriend at the time, to say, you don't look good and you can take yourself out of this. And I think all in all, it was a good part of my journey. And I think that everything comes full circle eventually. And that journey has not come full circle for me yet. But slowly, through my work experience that I have now, I can see the lessons that I learned there that are valuable, and also the lessons that I learned that I don't want to repeat. So thank God for that. So yeah, that is my story time about how a dream job turned out to be a lesson in not all that glitters is gold. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me about your first job experience down below, and I will definitely reply to those comments. Love you loads, and I will see you on the next video.